So the big question on everyone's minds 5 years ago was, okay, well, I don't really like this ending of Game of Thrones. Is this going to be what I read in the books when they come out? And a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to happen exactly like the books. That's why I'm never going to read them ever because I hated the ending. And then there's some people that are like, no, it's going to be completely different. But I think maybe this ending is going to be somewhere in the middle, probably.
Like most sayings, it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle.
It's not going to be exactly the same, but there's going to be some same things. Because we know that George has already confirmed, I think it was D&D who actually confirmed that 3 specific plot points were actually George's ideas. And the story is that George gave them like a whole bullet point list of just all the major plot points that are going to happen in the end of the series. And so when you watch all these plot points play out in the show, you're like, okay, some of them are kind of cool, I guess, but then some of them make no damn sense at all. And
Jaime and Bran sleeping with each other.
That one feels like truly D&D's work.
I mean, that's like the most, like, out of everything about their relationship, it's like, what should we go back to? Oh, the fact that she's a virgin. Like, none of the, like, deep psychology or any of the, like, nothing that made them people, but it's like, oh, she's never had sex. Let's make her have sex. Like, her character arc is that someone likes her enough to fuck her. That really has a lot of meaning.
There are a lot of moments in the latter seasons that similarly don't make sense, but just in a little bit of a different way. While moments like the sex between Jaime and Brienne are stupid because they're just kind of pointless and undermine previous character arcs and whatnot, there are moments that are nonsensical because it seems like they would offer a lot of meaning and have a huge impact on the storyline and the characters if they just made more sense. And that is what we'll be talking about in this series. Dany burning down King's Landing raises a lot of questions, like, why did she do it? Why did she do it when she's already won? Is it because she's crazy? If that's the case, then why did she go from crazy dragon lady to a selfless queen who puts her wants and desires on hold in order to do what's right and save people, back to crazy dragon lady within like 10 episodes maybe? Why is there an emphasis put on bells in this episode? Why do the bells seem to make her go crazy? Yeah, all these pieces seem really haphazardly thrown together, and it's not just something that Dan and Dave could just think of for the characters to do. It seems like they're drawing upon something that was maybe given to them in a bullet point list. It seems that maybe they're drawing upon something that they don't have the full picture of, so they are just trying to do their best with the pieces they were given. So that seems like what we're dealing with, and I think you can see that throughout some of the later seasons of the show, where they take pieces that are obviously from the source material, obviously from George, but then twist it, or they sort of hobble them together in an adaptation that just doesn't really pan out very well. And I think the big reason for this, for a lot of these, is that Dan and Dave, number one, wanted to take out as much magic as they could. You know, they wanted to appeal to everybody watching the show because it's like the biggest show ever. So they wanted to hold back on a lot of the fantastical elements, which, as we see throughout the books, gets progressively more important, and that the end game is probably going to rely on a lot of magical elements that the show creators just didn't want to put in there to begin with. Not only that, but about halfway through the book series, a bunch of characters and new storylines are added in, and I think the creators of the show just didn't want to deal with introducing all these new characters. They thought it might alienate viewers, probably, in a similar sense that they thought that the magic might alienate viewers. So they decided not to add in all these characters either, and instead they either just cut all those storylines, or they gave them to new characters, or they just really, really pared them down. In the same way that a lot of the end game is going to rely on some of these magical elements that the show cut, they're also going to rely heavily on these characters that George introduced, because he's not introducing them for no reason. These characters are probably going to play pretty major roles in these plot points down the road that the show was trying to adapt, but because they chose not to add those characters or the magic elements, those plot lines kind of fell flat.
Like Jaime and Bronn being secret agents on Viper Island. What is it? What's it called? Dorne, yeah. Singing songs and talking about bad pussy and stuff like that. It's like, what is happening? Like, how did the show go from the most fast-paced, dramatic, plot-based television show in history to, like, these long-ass scenes of Bronn and Jaime being like, oh, we gotta sneak in. I mean, you remember how fast season 3 and 4 were, where it was just like, bang, cut.
Yeah, always every scene is like a minute long.
Yeah, everyone's always moving forward and doing something, and then they're...
Yeah, there's always this expansion. There's never a break. It's always like every season a new group of people is introduced, a new faction, new characters, and then season 5 rolls around, they're like, And actually, there's actually nothing new. And then the new stuff that you see, Dorne, it's like 3 people live in Dorne, apparently.
Yeah, it's like Dorne, I thought was like a town. Like it doesn't make any.
Yeah, and in the books, there's, I think, let's see, 3 new POV characters added that are in Dorne, a 4th Dornish POV character added in the 5th book, and there's whole plot line there, and they're like, let's just make Bronn James Bond or something like.
Yeah, Jamie Bond.
00 Kevin Lannister.
A visual metaphor, they cut off the foot of a character from the book and glue it on to the arm of Dany. They take the hand off of a character in the book and they say, well, we need this hand to make this plot point make sense. Let's stick it in Tyrion's stomach. It's like this Frankenstein monster where they just kept attaching all these random parts to characters. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a great example that we can for sure see that it is source material that they're taking and just cutting as much of it as possible till there's only bones and scraps for the dogs to gnaw on. And the dogs being the writer's room that they're whipping and saying, make the show good.
I'm trying. Why would these characters change?
They can't.
It changes every season until season 5, and then he turns into Tony Stark, and he just mopes around with that fake British accent. What does he do after season 4?
He drinks and he knows things.
I remember when we were watching that, he said that, and I paused it, and I looked at you, and I was like, yo, why did he say that? I like immediately, I was like, what's happening? Why are the characters talking like that? I remember when Jon came back to life, he turns into Captain America in the last 4 seasons, bro.
Well, they say death changes people.
That's what I mean. Why does it make him more jovial in spirit? He has like such a jocular attitude about coming back to life. What the fuck is that? Like, Jon's a boring guy. I mean, this girl is like, come on, let me have sex with you, Jon. And he's like, stop! Stop it! Are you out of your mind? We can't do that. I'm a man of the Night's Watch. We take no lovers.
So all of this is an example of the creators and the writers taking stuff that we know is in the source material and changing it because they don't have all these characters, because they chose not to set it up.
Wait a minute. So you think characters missing from the show have something to do with King's Landing burning down?
I do think that missing characters have something to do with King's Landing burning down, and that's why Dany's arc and the sequence of events surrounding the burning of King's Landing feel very Frankenstein together. So there are just a few characters that I want to talk about that are in the books that they were like, we're not fucking adding that to the show. One of them being the young Master Griff and his aging companion Griff. In the show, Tyrion gets shipped off to Pentos, where he's supposed to get wrapped up in Varys and Illyrio's plot. But then in the show, Illyrio, he's not there, even though it's his house, and he never really is talked about ever again, I don't think. And Varys' plot, I don't think ever really comes up. In the books, there's like an actual, plan that Varys has, other than like, oh, we're just going to go hang out with the Dragon Queen. She seems like a good gal.
Oh, that's where they're going.
Yeah, and then Angry Man pops up, Jorah. He appears and kidnaps Tyrion, and then they get captured by slavers, and then they go to the fighting pits. So when the show does all this, they're skipping over this part of the book that introduces a bunch of new characters and reveals part of Varys and Illyrio's plan. He's told that he's just traveling with these sellswords where they're going to meet up with the Golden Company, who will then meet up with Daenerys at a certain point. Tyrion quickly puts together that obviously the Master of Whispers is hiding something. And he finds out that he's not traveling with any old sellswords. He's traveling with some people that's played a major role in Robert's Rebellion, and that would be the little baby who got its head smashed by the mighty mountain who rides, Aegon Targaryen.
Aegon Targaryen? He's not in the show.
He's not in the show. But yes, Tyrion quickly realizes that he is traveling with this baby Targaryen thought to be dead, but now posing as the son of someone named Griff, who we find out is actually the exiled Jon Connington. Jon Connington is Rhaegar Targaryen's best friend. Oh my God. And let's just say Jon Connington wanted to be a little bit more than friends. And so we find out that there's a lot more to Varys and Illyrio's plan than meets the eye. And we're not going to go into all the details of the Aegon Blackfire shit. Go watch Alt Shift's video. It's probably the best summation of all that information.
You can say that about any video ever made that he's also made, unfortunately. So if he ever makes a video close to this, it's like, well, I guess just go watch his.
But even though Tyrion, whilst traveling with these characters, gets, carried away by the mighty Ser Jorah, the characters of Aegon and Griff and their little band of misfits go on and have Jon Connington becomes a POV character. And so we get their story from that point on, even though they split with Tyrion. And their whole plan was to join with the Golden Company, join up with Daenerys, offer his hand in marriage to Daenerys, and then they would go and conquer Westeros together as like a husband-wife duo. But then Tyrion plants the idea in young Aegon's head to just go and conquer Westeros without Daenerys. And Aegon's like, you really think I should do that? And Tyrion's like, yes. And then Tyrion basically tells him that he's lying, but I guess Aegon was like, oh, it's actually a very cleverly devious idea. But yes, Aegon, they go to the Golden Company, realize that Daenerys is in a big shitstorm and is probably going to be unavailable for a while.
Literally a shitstorm. She's shitting her pants.
She is in that mighty grass ocean. So Aegon just puts forth the idea to all the Golden Company, and they're like, let's just go and do it. Let's just go and conquer Westeros. Why do we need her and her dragons? We've got an army, and Westeros will never...
We have a Hulk.
And Westeros will never be weaker, so let's just do it. And everyone's like, fuck it. I love the Golden Company in the books. In the show, they like seem real prim and proper for like this episode that they're in.
I don't even remember the Golden Company.
They're in maybe 2 episodes, and Cersei hires them, and then they get run over by Unsullied.
Unsullied?
Yeah.
I thought it was the Dothraki.
Oh, it might have been Dothraki. But then the Golden Company leader is killed by Grey Worm with a spear. But the Golden Company in the books, it's just like a bunch of dudes. They're like, fuck it, let's go kill. I've got nothing better to do. And they're kind of awesome. So they decide to go and conquer Westeros. And that's where we leave off, is they are successfully conquering Westeros. By the time that A Dance with Dragons ends, they've conquered like at least a few castles in the Stormlands before anyone really even knows what's going on. And according to the Winds of Winter sample chapter, they also take Storm's End, the castle that's never been taken by anyone. And so it is an army led by a Targaryen that is successfully conquering Westeros as of right now. So you would think that they're probably going to play a pretty big part in the storyline to come, especially with the throne and the people in charge, which are the Lannisters. Right?
One could be inclined to believe that on a given day, yes.
We know that a war is brewing. A war is brewing in the Seven Kingdoms, unlike any that people have seen in the past and present. Actually, it's exactly like a war that people have seen in the past, because George has stated that there will be a second Dance of the Dragons. Yeah, folks. He's also said that the second dance, it doesn't necessarily have to be Dany's invasion. Because that's what a lot of people say. It was like, Dany's all busy. You know, it's like, well, how is Dany going to get from the Myronese knot to Westeros in time to like do everything? And there's only 2 more books. Even if they're big books, it seems like a lot to fit in a whole nother war with her in Westeros. And we see this in the show. The whole war lasts like 5 episodes. You know, it's like, yeah, it's not enough time to really get her through her storyline, get her to Westeros, get her involved with the White Walkers and whatnot. And so what I think is that the most likely candidates for the second dance is going to be, the army that's invading Westeros versus the people that are in charge right now, which is the Lannisters. And this would mirror the first Dance of the Dragons, where you have two battling factions, one a woman queen, who everyone's like, a woman can't be queen, versus a Targaryen named Aegon. Yeah. It seems to parallel pretty well. And this would fill a huge absence that was felt, I think, in the show. The classic meme is like, Cersei doesn't do anything but stare out windows and drink wine for the last 2 seasons. I think that's because in the book she'll be busy with her trial and everything that she does in the show, but then when she comes into power, she's going to have to fight this new group of guys, that Aegon Targaryen, Jon Connington, his whole crew, the Golden Company, and that's going to take up a lot of time. And it's like, at a certain point in the show, the world just starts to disappear. It's like, what's happening in the Stormlands? Who knows? What's happening in the Riverlands? Who knows? These areas of the map just disappear, and no one cares about them. And it's because they cut these characters who are mainly going to be in the south of Westeros doing this big war, then the second dance. Not only were characters like Aegon and Jon Connington cut, but also most of the Dornish plot lines as well. So Cersei also doesn't have anything to do with the Sand Snakes and whatnot, which we're gearing up for in Winds of Winter. So all these were cut, and you can just definitely feel that absence. What Dan and Dave were trying to do, since they cut all these major characters in armies, basically, they tried to take this war that George had set up and make it between characters they had already established. Characters that maybe fans expected it to come down to, which is Cersei versus Dany. And so by the end of the show, that's kind of what I guess the main kind of crux of the story is like, okay, who's going to get the Iron Throne? Is it going to be Dany? Is it going to be Cersei? And that's yeah. And it feels really rushed. It feels very just like, it feels so stupid because there's nothing. It's like, it feels like a war between 20 people because there's no other factions involved. Nothing's really happening. Yeah. And
you don't even really care about what's happening between either of them because you're just at a point where their characters are so uninteresting. In my opinion, their characters are so uninteresting is that when they finally come to blows, I'm like, Cersei stopped being interesting after season 4. I've never found Dany to be that interesting past season 2. Like, the Karth stuff was cool, but even that wasn't that great. But, I mean, it was the greatest city that ever was or will be, I suppose.
So in the show, this war boils down to the destruction of King's Landing. So what we can tell is that whatever war is about to kind of break out in the books, it's probably going to come down to King's Landing blowing up. Yeah. And so I don't think it's going to be Dany that's really involved with it, but most likely Cersei and these characters of Aegon and Jon Connington.
It's like they set their flag on King's Landing getting destroyed and said, well, how are we going to have that happen? Since Aegon and Jon Connington and none of these characters are in the show, who can we force in a direction to have it, be semi-reasonable that they would blow up the city? And because there was 5 characters in the whole show, they said, well, I guess we'll take Cersei and Dany and force them onto this track heading towards the direction of King's Landing blowing up. Whereas in the book, it seems like a very natural sort of progression towards the event. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Especially because of all of these characters foreshadowing when it comes to fiery destruction. Clues within the text. Let's put on our checkered hats and smoke our pipes and pull out our magnifying glasses and look for said clues and examine these characters' stories and see if we can find any instances in which these characters have anything to do with fire.
Rapid fire. Let's do it.
Rapid fire time.
Cersei's wildfire obsession. Bang!
Cersei was the one who thought of the wildfire plan that Tyrion takes advantage of in Book 2.
Cersei watched the fire and she started crying because she loved how the fire looked so much. The wildfire.
When she burned down the Tower of the Hand, she used wildfire, and she thought it was so beautiful, that flame and destruction, that she wanted to watch it a bit longer as people went to bed.
Aegon flips a board. He goes, I'm done with this, and he flips a board because he gets so mad that he lost. He just destroys everything. All the kings and queens and pawns he destroys in one fell swoop.
During that game, Aegon's going to bring out his dragon. Tyrion tells him, oh, you shouldn't bring out your dragon too soon, young lad. So Aegon believes him, plays the game without the dragon. Tyrion wins because he didn't use his dragon, and because he lost, Aegon flips the board.
Kind of like, so that kind of reminds me how Tyrion's like, don't attack. It's like, you don't need Dany's dragons to attack. Queen Cersei. Her brother killed the Mad King who once almost set the whole city on fire, and there's a prophecy about Cersei getting killed by her brother.
Cersei is compared to the Mad King by Jaime.
Oh.
When she talks about how much she loves wildfire.
Tyrion says your words will turn to ashes in your mouth. Fires.
And the exclamation point on all this is in the last Jon Connington chapter we learn a little bit about his backstory and his tragic fate, where he was best friends with Rhaegar Targaryen. And because of that, played a pretty instrumental role in Robert's rebellion against Robert. And there was a point in time during that rebellion where Robert was injured and had been tracked down to this place called the Stony Sept. Jon Connington cornered him in the city and basically sent people door to door in order to try to find him. And he's like, I can end this war right now. I just have to find him, bring him back to...
Blow his head off.
And he was... cut his head off, blow his head off, bring him to King's Landing, whatever, right? But the townspeople were hiding Robert because they liked him. And he couldn't find him. And it took so long to find him that it gave time for Ned and Jon Arryn to show up with their forces. During this battle, Robert emerges, and he was hiding in the brothel. Who would have guessed? And he emerges injured, and he joins the fight because he's Robert. And Robert, Ned, Jon Arryn, they all get away. And Jon Connington is haunted by this because he had the chance to find Robert to end the war, and he couldn't manage it. And then Robert went on to kill his best friend and the love of his life, Rhaegar Targaryen. And it's after this that he's exiled, and that's when he goes and joins up with the Golden Company, where he meets a man by the name of Miles Toyne. And he's trying to make excuses to Miles when talking about this event. And he's saying, like, oh, like, the people were hiding him. Tywin Lannister could do no better to find him, just coping. And Miles responds with, oh, Tywin would have found him. He said,
what is it? Tywin would have burnt the town down to find him and picked out his bones or something like that?
Exactly. This really gets Jon Connington thinking. He's like, oh, I guess he's right. He's like, I could have just burned down the whole town. And so this is a moment that he sees as a failure in his life. And we also get the reveal, the chapter before this, when saving Tyrion from drowning, he got infected with grayskin. Whatever the fuck it's called. Grayscale. That's what it is, grayskin. Which is another example of D&D Frankensteining plot points. Because they cut Jon Connington, they gave the grayscale to Jorah instead. But in the books, it's Jon Connington, and we know that grayscale makes people go crazy. So we got a man who's conquering Westeros. He's got grayscale, so he's going to go crazy.
Haunted by the misdecisions of his past.
And he thinks about the way he could have saved the man he loves is by burning down a whole town. And during the battle of the Stony Sept, the thing that so haunts him, bells were ringing the whole time.
Bong,
The bells of the Stony Sept did ring out on that day throughout the battle. And so the thing that haunts him most is related to ringing bells. Is it starting to make a little bit of sense, folks?
So let's go back to the TV show. So the pieces of the show that didn't make sense are Dany versus Cersei, Dany burning everything down, and Dany burning everything down because she hears bells ringing.
If you just slide Jon Connington and Aegon into the role that Dany takes on in the show, it makes perfect sense. It makes sense with their characters, their arcs, their backstories, the timeline that we're given. It makes a whole lot more sense, I think.
Okay, so since it's going to be them doing this, how's that going to go down, like, in detail?
So in the same way that I think the show creators were taking ideas from George's outline and his source material and sort of cobbling them together to make this Frankenstein ending to the show in regards to Jon Connington and Aegon's story and giving it to Dany. I think he's doing the same thing on Cersei's side, the opposing side. I think a lot of what Euron is planned to do in the books, a lot of that stuff is given to the Night King to do, because the Night King's not a character in the books. And so that makes Euron's story equally as hollow as Cersei's feels, right? Because all the stuff he's supposed to do was taken and given to someone else or cut out of the show because they wanted to cut out magic stuff. But it seems like what remains from the original idea is that maybe Cersei and Euron will team up. And in the team up in the books, Euron by that point will be a lot more powerful than he is in the show, and he might be the owner of one of Dany's dragons that he's trying to steal. Because that's his whole thing, is he's trying to take one of Dany's dragons and use them to conquer Westeros. If this goes down in the books, they team up and Euron has a dragon. Not only does this parallel the Bloodstone Emperor taking a tiger woman as his bride, Cersei being a lion woman instead. She a lion woman. Not only that, but Cersei will have a dragon. And that's how she might beat Aegon and his forces, who seem pretty strong right now, which would mirror Tyrion and Aegon's chess game, where Tyrion beats him with his dragon piece.
A Lannister beats Aegon with a dragon.
No, I mean, I really wasn't even thinking about that until you just said it. But yes, a Lannister using their dragon piece to beat Aegon, who chose not to use his dragon. And so, in a moment of just like grayscale madness, I think that John Connington is somehow going to set off the wildfire caches and just be like, I've got to save Aegon, and blow up the whole city. When he's thinking about all this haunting memories as they start conquering Westeros, the chapter ends with him thinking, I failed the father, I will not fail the son.
What if it's something like Aegon goes missing and he's like, I gotta find him, and he goes, I know how I'll find him. And he burns down King's, just goes crazy. And he's like, Tywin would have burnt the whole place down to find him.
Yeah, like that. I think all this stuff is going to be swirling in his insanity. The bells are going to remind him.
PTSD.
Yeah. We see in the Battle of the Blackwater, the battle in King's Landing in the second book of the series, that might mirror the battle in King's Landing that happens in the second to last book in the series. We know that they ring the bells as the battle is starting. These bells are going to make him start thinking about all this, and he's like, in order to save Aegon, the son, whom I shall not fail, I need to burn down the whole city, kill the opposing regent, and win the day. And I think that's how the city's gonna be blown up. And so by the time Dany flies over, she's gonna be like, "What the fuck?" She's gonna be like, "I worked so hard for absolutely nothing." That's it for this video, but as time goes on, we'll tackle some of the other moments in the later seasons and kind of break down how we think those are going to go in the books. So stay tuned, our dear viewers, and like and subscribe. More on the way. More videos on the way.
I really do believe Sir Arthur Dayne is the fucking Lord, the man with the world's biggest mouth. What's his name? Mansorator. I'll be honest, John. I don't want to die. That's right. That's how it sounds.
That's pretty good.
It'd look a lot better if you could see my face.